Here's a little holiday greeting I've been wanting to send to the Mandarin. I just didn't know how to phrase it until now. My name is Tony Stark, and I'm not afraid of you. I know you're a coward. So I've decided that you just died, pal. I'm gonna come get the body. There's no politics here, it's just good old-fashioned revenge. There's no Pentagon, it's just you and me. And on the off chance you're a man, here's my home address. 10880 Malibu Point, 90265. I'll leave the door unlocked. That's what you wanted, right? Fill me.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 126 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm Becca and joined by my fellow War Machines turned Iron Patriots, Chris and Dave. How are you doing?
I was thrown right off then. That doesn't happen very often.
I was thinking, how can I put an Iron Man 3 twist on this introduction?
Normally Becca just says whatever she says and it kind of washes over me, but that's just wrong.
Sorry.
What's my award-winning catchphrase for this first thing I said? I've completely forgotten. Ah, yes. Good evening, folks.
He breathes fire.
Well, you know what they say, the second mouse gets the cheese, whatever that means.
What?
I think they're saying first.
It's a quote from the film, I think.
I know.
Actually, the second mouse arrives and finds the first.
That was
mouse.
it, yeah, the second,
Its
yeah.
arse up in the air.
That's the one.
And if it's related to Pierce Brosnan, it thinks, game on.
I think, I'll piece that cheese, why not?
Right.
Oh dear. So, lovely listeners, this time we enter phase 2 of the Marvel Universe as we review Iron Man 3, starring Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Guy Pearce, Don Cheadle, Ben Kingsley, Becca Hall, William Sadler, Jon Favreau, James Badgedale, and many, many more. Written and directed by Shane Black, with a score by Brian Tyler, and released in 2013.
Yeah, it was also written by another fella, wasn't it? What's his name?
Wasn't Drew Pearce on this?
Yes, that was the one. I wanted to say Drew Pearce, but I wasn't entirely 100%.
Didn't happen to that other fella.
He was involved in one of the Mission Impossible films at a story level. He got rewritten by Macquarie, yeah.
There's a bit of a crossover here.
Which means it must have been one of the last two. Yeah, it's Rogue Nation. I've just actually hit the link. Yeah, it is Rogue Nation he was involved with. And he studied at Exeter University.
Claim to fame.
Well, not really.
Alumni of near you.
Well, fairly near. I used to work quite near it.
Cool.
Brian Tyler, the guy who did the music for this, he's done lots of stuff, but the most recent thing that like Formula One fans will have seen is they've got new music because they rebranded Formula One last year.
Was that him?
Yeah, they used the 1970s Top Gear. That's right, yes. No, the music for you see at the start of sort of Grand Prix sessions and races and stuff. It was written by him and launched at the start of this season.
The old Top Gear theme tune.
I don't know that he wrote that, no. Given that he was born in the 70s, he probably didn't write it when he was like 5.
No, I know.
Just looking through to see what he's actually best known for. And well, lots of relatively well-known stuff. Yeah,
Formula One at the moment for me. And obviously this film.
And that's fun, folks. So,
anyway, initial reactions.
Go on, Chris.
Oh, okay, I'm going first.
We'll go well, not alphabetically, but we'll go by age order.
What, by picking the one in the middle? Brilliant.
I'm very disorganised. I'm just getting off the back of a horrible, nasty cold, and I've got other crap going on in the background, so I am very disorganised.
It's alright.
You know, it's all the same as usual.
It's alright. Well, you know, seeing as we are going age order, like, let's go with ladies first. Becca.
Okay, so, yeah, admittedly, I'm the first to hold up my hand and say, out of all the Avengers and all the Marvel characters, Iron Man is the one I'm least familiar with. I remember to go and see remember going to see this
he's
one.
no Falcon, is he? Go on, sorry.
Well, he's no Chris Hemsworth, but anyway. But no, I did go and see all these at the cinema. I remember seeing this one. Ben Kingsley just seemed to me like a really odd choice. Somehow, like, he doesn't belong.
The Mandarin?
Yeah, it was a bit weird. But no, I didn't know too much about him. I knew that he was kind of like
Well, I thought
Iron Man's nemesis almost.
I thought they'd pick a person of colour, like Scarlett Johansson.
Honestly, he's kind of known for like more like indie films, or also like playing a villain. But also he's known as a theatre actor. Certainly, like also within British cinema as well. So to me, he stuck out like a sore thumb.
I think it also more of a given as like, oh, we know it is Ben Kingsley basically playing the Hood again. It's always like
yeah,
this,
I was gonna say you also see the Hood in the live action Thunderbirds film, directed by Jonathan Frakes. Very exciting, worth checking out.
Really?
Just for sheer cheese value, because it's Jonathan Frakes. He has a good time making it. Has a good time making this film.
Yeah, but
with the news sponsored by
Becca,
Ford.
I have a good time having a wank, but I don't recommend everyone watch it.
It's really funny. It's really funny. It's so.
No, it ain't. I'm quite serious. Oh, I see.
It's one of those films. It's so bad, it's good.
He's been in plenty of big budget stuff.
He's done loads of stuff. But to me, just playing somebody who was meant to be like a big bad, who was like kind of like nemesis to Iron Man, and I think
it's a coup to get both Gandhi and James Hunt in the Marvels.
It's amazing. I think it's amazing, quite frankly. But no, I just like initially when they announced the cast, I was like, Ben Kingsley, really? Okay. But then as time went on, I thought, oh, okay, actually, no, I see what they're getting at here. And then, spoiler alert, when they revealed the twist about the Mandarin, I was like, huh, okay. So I could totally get where they were coming from that respect. I watched this obviously recently for the review. Really, personally, I quite enjoyed it. It was good fun. Zips along. It doesn't really drag for me, I think. We're kind of getting more, and obviously you've got like Iraq War and things like that going on in the background. Lots of US foreign policy coming under scrutiny, and you've got that definitely reflected in the film. A lot of anxiety about war, PTSD, stress. He actually suffers from anxiety in the film. I think it's also those kind of him kind of processing and dealing with the events of the Avengers film and seeing a more human side to this, because I think out of all of them, well, obviously the majority of them, along with obviously the Hulk as well, kind of more like human characters, shall we say. So it kind of shows he's got a more human side to him. And also you just had obviously Skyfall come out the previous year as well, kind of moving away from being a superhero to being kind of showing more like a human side. So showing those effects of like anxiety, PTSD, and the results of such traumatic events. So that's quite interesting as well. It touches on it a little bit, but it just kind of like grazes lightly, so it doesn't bog down the film too heavily, which is quite good. But no, I enjoyed it. We'll go through and pick out little bits as the film goes on. But yeah, kind of zips along. I think I don't know, I think I had a better time with it than I did last week's film, even though I kind of enjoyed most of it.
Last week's film being The Avengers.
Not last week's film. Sorry, the previous Iron Man film. Sorry. But obviously, yeah, The Avengers. I love. It's amazing. I would say
Okay.
forever
Actually, we did a
one.
commentary last week, but our last review proper, yeah. Okay. So it's actually your favourite of the three?
Oh, I'm still struggling where to rank them. I did enjoy it. I mean, it's not like a perfect film, and it's interesting where they bring out like all the different like Iron Men, all the different Iron suits as well. There are some problems that I do have with the film, but I do like the kind of side where it takes on like a more social conscience, and also you've got the kind of the politics at the time coming to the screen. So it's a real reaction to that, I think, an attempt by Marvel and the films committee to face that head on. Don Cheadle doesn't get much to do. Well, he does have quite a meaty chunk at the end, but it's like he's sidelined a little bit, which I have problems with. But apart from that, I enjoyed.
That's a meaty chunk you've got there, Don.
Well, obviously, he basically saves the day at the end, which is amazing. But it's just like, could have. I'm sure when I saw it, I was like, I'm sure he had a bigger role last time, but clearly not. But no, he's still very cool though, and he'll forever be.
I thought he
Iron
handled
Patriot.
the action stuff quite well. You know, when he's like
he did really
in the
well.
shootout
So
bits, it's like you don't. You seems to be, you seems to be doing this better than I thought you would. You know, you would think like John
He kicks
Cheadle.
ass. He really kicks ass.
Yeah, he actually has a, he doesn't look like he, doesn't know what he's doing. He has a, good manner about him.
Exactly, especially because like the Iron Patriot, I'm trying not to call him War Machine, is undermined as well. So it's kind of like his name and everything that he stands for is kind of being undermined and besmirched. So I think that's quite interesting as well. But he kicks ass. Not that he can't hold his own. I'm not saying that he can't, but yeah, he does pack a punch.
That's a meaty chunk you're holding there, Dom.
I would say he has, got a little bit through the film. It kind of drip feeds, and then obviously he comes in, sweeps in, and saves the day at the end. So.
I wish he'd swept in, like properly sweeping, like that guy in Quantum of Solace
With a broom.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite touch the ground.
All right, cool. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of similar with Becca with this a little bit. I mean, I was going to be a little bit biased because I'm a bit of a Shane Black. I wouldn't say fanboy, but obviously he is. He's a, I would say, veteran in a genre which I really get on board with. I really do enjoy Last Boy Scout, Lethal Weapon, and all that kind of stuff. So anything with that kind of vibe, especially with the Kick Kiss Bang Bang as well. Like, there's little sort of.
I thought he did that. That's a brilliant film.
Yeah, there's little bits of. Especially in the bits where he's in that small town and with the kid, and the action scenes there felt very Shane Blacky, and I kind of really enjoyed that aspect of it. Yeah, I mean, I've always
it's a very Shane Black movie, isn't it?
Well, yeah, definitely, and I think why not? It's
obviously being directed by him.
Well, yeah, but it's like also like it's a bit of an authorship stamp on a franchise film, which kind of it's a Marvel film, but also a Shane Black movie at the same time, which I think is pretty cool. It's nice when if most of them could do that. It's like, all right, well, there's a little bit different edge to it. But yeah, no, I've always had a really good time with this. It isn't perfect, granted. I am kind of like Becca, a little bit torn, like thinking about, do I prefer this or the first Iron Man? I think the Iron Man is a lot more simpler film, but is a lot more toned and it's just almost like pristine. It's like, well, it's very functional. It works, and there is a beautiful element to that. Whereas this has a lot more stuff I like going on. There's a lot more in it, and overall it's a lot more enjoyable. But it is a little bit. It doesn't all hang together, so to speak. The ending is a little bit of a letdown, particularly with the Pepper Potts and all that jazz at the end, where he just decides, yeah, well, I'll just take the shit out of my chest, as if it was just like, oh well, you could have just done that anyway. Right, great.
Yeah.
That just
need you to face your fears first, or something.
Yeah, it just kind of demeans the character in general. It's like, well, if he could have done that just means, well, all right, well, what makes him so special now? It's like he's just a guy in a suit. He could just give the suit to anyone now. But
well, that was always sort of the case. I mean, Rhodey took them. That always confused me in the second one when Rhodey took the suit, and I thought, doesn't he need an arc reactor? I think, well, maybe they all have one in them.
Yeah.
And basically, when Tony wears it, it goes into it links to his chest. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's like splitting hairs, but I think it's like the special element that.
That always bothers me most, though, when it's little things that you think you could explain that quite easily, and you just go, "What's that about then?" Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite annoying, isn't it? It's a bit frustrating, I must admit, but
I mean,
there it is.
I guess, like, with the big magnet surgery, that makes absolute sense. Why don't you just do that? But in terms of the character itself and what it means to means to him, it's like it's something that it's almost like it's just like scapegoating. It's just like, all right, well, you just kind of like ruin that whole point of that aspect of the character now. And I kind of, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's the point now? Why can't he just sort of get over these things while still have the reactor in his chest? He's just removing the whole element that's the fundamental aspect of his character. But anyway, but as a whole, I do enjoy it. I do. One thing I thought was really odd. I remember at the time. I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but at the time there was a few naysayers going around, or the bit that people were unsure about was the fact that, well, he doesn't spend much time in the suit, and it's, I just feel like, it's a bit of a letdown because it's meant to be Iron Man 3, and, it's mostly just Tony Stark bobbing around, and I'm just a bit confused by that.
Bobbing around
as you do.
Well, it is basically, it's like, well...
On the beautiful briny sea.
Well, Iron Man isn't really... The suit isn't really the draw of the character. It's really, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
Who is Iron Man? Who is Iron Man? Is it
Robert Downey
Stark?
Jr.?
Yeah. I don't know. Is it Stark or is it the suit? It's one of those things. Can you separate the man from the heroic persona?
Well,
Who is it?
That's the thing. It's like he's basically addicted to the suits, and he's like he's using that as a way to kind of like bring his attention to what he really can't do, really, which is part of the art of the film. But again, it's I forgot what I was saying now. But yeah, anyway, yeah,
it's contagious.
Well, yeah, I think I just was a bit confused because I think that a lot of the complaints was like he's not in the suit enough. It's a bit, it just feel a bit cheated as it being like the third film. I was like, well, he's not really the draw of the film, is it? It's not part of it. And plus, also, I do like the element of stripping, Tony of his powers, so to speak, in quotation marks, and letting him kind of, use his actual skill, his building skills. He's an engineer. He's a he's a builder. It's like it's getting him to think on his feet and actually sort of like be, like be beyond what superhero actually is.
He's not a builder. His ass wasn't hanging out of his jeans or anything.
He didn't have his 10 sugars in a cup of tea.
I was going to say he didn't have 4 sugars in his tea. When he was asked about building a new suit, he didn't go.
Oh, that'll cost you, love.
Absolute bollocks! Didn't fuck anyone's wife.
Oh dear.
But yeah, there you are. I kind of enjoyed it. It has problems, but I never get bored from it.
I mean, the where I do differ from both of you is that there's absolutely no doubt which of the Iron Man films are going to rank top. I mean, this is in a different half of the rankings from Iron Man. I've got no doubt about that. This is going to be in the bottom half. But that's not all negative by any stretch of the imagination. I really didn't have a very good viewing with it today at all. I was getting really kind of bored with it. Funny enough, Chris saying I'm not bored at any point. I was quite happy for it to finish. But there's some real positives to it because you always score very highly for me when you try something new. That's why Quantum of Solace ain't in my bottom of 5 in the Bond films, because they tried something different. It didn't necessarily work. And the same's true here. I appreciated he was out of the suit. I really did. The bit where he has to sort of infiltrate the mansion in Miami with just sort of homemade stuff. Well, that is the genesis of Iron Man. A genius making the best of what's around him. Well, the best of what's around him is normally phenomenal wealth. But it didn't start off that way. He was in a cave with, like, very little there.
It's like rediscovering who he is, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, in terms of the sort of who is Iron Man, is it him, is it the suit or whatever, I mean, I don't think the film attempts to answer that because it's the last line of the film, but that wasn't as scripted. He was going to say, I am Tony Stark, so that might even be sort of a focus group answer as opposed to an artistic one, so maybe we can't answer that, I don't know. The biggest complaints against the film, as I recall, were that, which I think is a kind of a silly complaint, to be honest, because unless you want your films all to be cookie cutter, occasionally they'll come in and do something different. I do have a complaint about the suits, and I'll come to it. The other big complaint was the sort of mauling of the Mandarin character, which I guess if you're listening to us, you've seen it or you don't care. But I've really no need to particularly spoil that now until we get to it.
He does a good role there. I mean, with Ben Kingsley, you're guaranteed a solid performance, whatever he does. I just think he's always stand up pretty good.
I'm trying to think, has he ever been bad in anything? There's been films he's got on my tits in, but I think
even when he was the Hood, he hammed it right up, and it's
Sexy
fabulous.
Beast springs to mind, but he's actually doing exactly what the part requires.
Well, yeah, he's just batshit mental in that. So.
He totally, yeah.
Excuse my language, but
He is hilarious in this.
The nature of his character that he is off kilter a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he does it really well, and he's a memorable performance in that film.
But there was a lot of complaints about the character. Now, I think I've always got... I remind you of the point I made in the very first episode where we're not really comic book people. We're not against them. We read some of them sometimes. But, I mean, Iron Man was a C or D list character. I do think a lot of people who are saying that's a complete bastardization of the character are either a tiny minority who did read Iron Man comics because he wasn't one of the more popular ones, or they're almost like jumping on a bandwagon. It's like you're saying that because it's the said thing. Did you ever read them? Because Iron Man comics did not sell very well, or have you just read them since they've come along. The third thing we really is this is Marvel making this, you know, and if they've got their own sort of version of the multiverse where you've got the sort of Ultimate line, and you've got what's often called as, I think it's 616, Earth 616, which is like the main Marvel line, and I think this is 999,099 or something like that. They've got different distinct universes. They're not all supposed to be copies of each other. It's like in Infinity War. They said, well, they've got the gauntlet wrong. It's like, well, no, they haven't. They're fucking Marvel.
Well, yeah, it's like I mean, I'm kind of a bit of a stickler to sort of be true to the original, but at the same time, it's art, and also, do you want a carbon copy of it on screen? Or, you know, I mean, at the end of the day,
it's like in the original continuity, Ultron was created by Hank Pym. Well, if you want to do an Ultron story at the point in the universe where they did one, we hadn't even met Hank Pym. Things change, things get done differently. So, and not only that, I mean, there was a little short afterwards which sort of explained that there still is an alternative sort of out there. I really don't have a problem with that at all, and I'm trying to think, if I was a big comic book reader, would I feel any different? It would be a long shot that I read all of Iron Man and the Mandarin. It's amazing when suddenly Iron Man 2 comes out and then suddenly everyone's an expert on Whiplash and things like that, and it's like, oh, come on, really? I'm sure some people were, and I'm sure some people talking about it were.
It's the social media effect, isn't it? It's like...
Well, I always remember, it's a completely unrelated point, but I just remember Ian Botham saying about, for those not in this country, Ian Botham was a cricketer, which is even more like niche. But he had a very famous match performance at Headingley, which is in Leeds, in 1981. And he said the number of people he's met over the years who claim to have been there must have been like 5 million people in the ground. And I think it's the same with this, that suddenly everyone claims to have read it, and the sales figures don't fucking like support that at all. If you make a big change to like Alfred in the Batman books, then like fair enough. I get it, because like that they're really popular. But yeah, it's its own universe, and it's a flavour of what else we've seen. So I've got no problem with that. But yeah, I've belaboured that point a bit long actually. But I did think, and this is another thing where I think conversely, comic book readers didn't have a problem with this. The number of suits at this stage, out of nowhere, cheapened it for me. Now, as films have gone on, and when we get to next. Is it next week? No, it's a couple of weeks away. No, actually, it's about 4 or 5 weeks away. When we get to Age of Ultron, we'll see, like, the Hulkbuster. And I never had a problem with that, because I just thought, like, oh, he's built that in the interim. Now, the story does support it, because he's been obsessive and not sleeping. But the problem is, if they are completely independent of him, why would he ever get in the suit? In that regard, and only in that regard, it's like something like Into Darkness. Star Trek Into Darkness finished the film having made starships obsolete and cured death. Well, your only way forward is to ignore it. And I feel the same way about where Iron Man is in this film. That in future films, we've got him fighting with everyone else in his armour. Why? Why bother? Why put yourself at risk? So I thought it really cheapened him in the armour. But having said that, a lot of the time he's out of it, and that's really good. I think they tried something different with post-traumatic stress disorder. I think starting it in 1999 with cheesy music's great, and we'll come on to that. There is so much I like about it. It's a bit disjointed. It's a bit messy, and I enjoyed it more on first viewing than I kind of do now, but I still feel that like it was a step too far. It would have been green-lit at a point where the Avengers hadn't come out yet, and they still weren't really like massive hit makers. It's a bit like doing Iron Man 2 after The Incredible Hulk. The first one was a hit, he's popular, let's do another one. I think this was a very safety first film, and I'm not quite sure, beyond the post-traumatic stress disorder, whether any of the rest of it's that interesting. But it's the best of I think it's one of the better of my lower ranking films. I think, put it that way. It's not going to make the top half. It's not going to be anywhere near Iron Man. I respect your opinions, and it's a different film, and it is what you want to. If this is your favourite of the three, which neither of you confirmed it is, but if it ends up being that way, so be it. But I'm looking at like my skeleton ranking now, and they just don't exist in the same universe. Iron Man is a much more cohesive. Yes, it's simpler, but it's a more cohesive, better told story. Frankly,
at the moment,
this.
I'm not, in terms of like ranking them, at the moment I'm kind of not too sure whether this is going to sound really, really stupid, but this is just how my brain works. Whether to rank them as a whole, or to rank them in terms of like the phases, whether to do, you know, phase 1 top to bottom, phase 2 top to bottom, phase 3 blah 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 blah. But also you've got to take into account that as Chris was saying, this is a Shane Black movie and not a Jon Favreau movie, because the first one that he's not directed. Like the first Iron Man film, he's not directed.
No, I absolutely agree, but it's still an Iron Man movie. And,
yeah, it's still very much an Iron Man movie, for sure.
It's not as good as the other one, the first one. For me.
I probably rank this one in the middle. I probably, maybe, like, number one. I was trying to think
It's better than Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is still
I probably do the same ranking as you, Dave,
yeah.
but I don't know where I'll put them in the grand scheme of
Yeah, I mean, when we rank at the end, we
in
won't...
the middle somewhere.
We won't be ranking by phases. So, I mean, it's really up to you how and when you want to rank. I just always like a little outline at the start. Just to sort of... It's not preconceptions. It is almost to challenge myself, because I look at it and it's interesting to go, yeah, I got that wrong. Yeah, I've got that totally in the wrong place from sort of memory as to where it should go. I'm looking at it now, and I've got Iron Man above a film that after this viewing of Iron Man 3, above a film that, looking at it today, I can't believe I've ranked it ahead of, because I didn't have a particularly good time with it. But I'm not a big Shane Black fan, and at least they tried something different. And I think if you're going to do a third film, yeah. So relatively positive for what is a film I don't like that much, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt that too. It did something different, and I think a lot of times it's, you know, people just want the same thing, don't they? But then complain about how it's always the same thing. So it's a big
Star Wars being a wonderful example. Yeah, you know,
yeah, a big ball.
It's too similar. Do something different. It's too different.
A big ball blue in the sky, you know, like city getting destroyed. Oh, we don't want that. And okay, we mix it up. Well, you know, didn't really. The ending wasn't big enough. It's like, for fuck's sake.
I mean, the third act is a problem in this film. It's a problem for a lot of these films for me, anyway. But this is like a poster boy example of the third act. I didn't give a fuck. I really didn't. All these bloody suits flying about, and I was like, oh, piss off. But first couple of acts are really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the ending is probably the weakest part. I think it kind of just like it got caught up in its plot a bit too much. But you know, again, I did, you know, I remember at the time I really enjoyed the Mandarin twist. I mean, I'm no expert. I know next to nothing about the Mandarin. I understand why people might have been a little bit upset, because the Mandarin is basically like the Iron Man's Joker equivalent. He's like,
that's was my understanding. I thought it was basically like the blowfly or the Joker.
He's not famous enough to have a Joker, though.
Oh, I know, this was it.
That's
he was meant to be
point.
like the big bad. He was meant to be like his nemesis, if there were
it's
such
like,
a thing.
you know, you've ruined this famous lore. This is a character that a few years before was not selling.
Well, this is it, exactly. It's like, so I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, when you know, they brought in the twist as kind of like obviously when the main villain, as it were. I thought it was quite clever, and I didn't mind it at all. Yeah. And as I say, he did a good job. It was funny.
You always got the comics. Whenever you get upset about like a change in a different medium, you always think, well, you always got the comics. You know, well, you always have the originals.
It's not like the comics. Well, roll with it or read the fucking comics, you know? I think you've always got to try and get the spirit of it. They did put a one-shot afterwards, which basically said that the Mandarin is still out there.
Yeah.
But but even fans, like the problem is, once you start trying to placate fans, you're onto a loser. Because I read stuff at the time and recently in preparing for this where, well, the Mandarin's still out there. Oh, they only did that one shot because they knew they'd fucked up. It's like just total entitled fandom yet again. This is Marvel. And at this stage, they still had the brains trust together. They still had people like Joe Quesada, Avi Arad. I don't know if Avi Arad was still there, but they had people in the room that had worked on Marvel comics for decades between them.
Yeah.
And they thought this was absolutely fine.
Yeah,
and I just think, like, if you've got the story in your head, it's pointless even going to see a film in the first place. Because if it's not what you've written, you're not going to be happy.
there's so many Iron Man storylines. Even with like say maybe about the first or second one or any of the comics like the Captain America stuff, they'll take like sort of strands of the storyline and implicate them. So like here you got obviously got the Mandarin, but you also got like the Extremis storyline, which was like a big popular one for Iron Man.
I mean Extremis in the comic books, and I have seen some of that. I think Extremis is almost like it's under his skin, effectively, that like he can sort of the armor forms out of him, kind of thing. Like I say, Hank Pym created Ultron in the comic books. Later on, I know that they've slightly changed the sort of way Thanos is. Thanos in the books has a much more of an obsession with not an obsession with, but a strange fascination with death in a very sort of different way. I've not read that much, but I've read bits and pieces, and I've read around on characters. Jarvis, I don't think was artificial intelligence in the comic books. I think he was like his butler,
it must be more like a butler, isn't it? I think.
So. Things fucking change. We're going to get to it with Homecoming, and it's like, well, it suits like smart tech. Well, it would be. It was built by Tony Stark, because that's the way this universe has unfolded. And I like the fact that they're letting the way it unfolds drive them, because you could have tried Age of Ultron and had to like introduce Hank Pym in the first 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, no, don't be silly. I don't know. I mean, really, this film doesn't tend to rank very high for people. A lot of people some people say it's the worst of the series. I can't see that. This is miles better than Iron Man 2. I think this has a greater degree of authorship on it, and it has some fresh ideas in it. Do all of those ideas work? No, but have a fucking go. What good on you?
Yeah.
To see him out of the suit a little bit is good. I like that. You're paying tens of billions of dollars for this guy. Let's see his face a bit more.
I really like the shot when where he's crashed. He's literally sort of like dragging the suit, and you see his arc like glow in the dark.
That's a lovely shot. I noticed
cool.
that myself.
Yeah, there's stuff really like that, which I think, this is like actually kind of thought out a little bit. It's not.
Yeah. So I mean, I love all of that. I mean, there's still some problems with the character, only in that you have to balance Tony between the guy who's learning from his mistakes, and the guy who's still a bit of a pompous arsehole. Pompous is probably the wrong word for Tony Stark, actually, but
arrogance, maybe, or self-confident. Self-confident.
I mean, the attack on his house is totally fucking self-inflicted, and Pepper could have been killed.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that as we go through it anyway, which I suggest we're probably at. Shall we discuss this film sequentially?
I think we are in that space now. Let's do it.
Let's go for it. So, we first get a shot of the suits blowing up. So
it's
basically come through a
narration.
Yeah.
We find out at the very, very end of the credits who is narrating to, which is cool. But yeah,
you almost forget that it is a narration at some point.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
Which is just as good, because there'd be no tension in it.
Yeah,
it is a story that had a happy ending last week. Yeah, I can't remember what the narration's saying, to be honest with you. Can you?
Oh no, it's just like Tony Stark.
Previously on Iron Man.
It's just like sort of actually let's go back to the beginning, and then it goes back to like
1999.
Yeah, to one
what's
of
that song called that plays?
Blue, and I fucking hate it.
Oh, it was all
number
over
one
the
for ages, wasn't it? It was number one.
Well, I don't think me and Chris have looked at the chart since we were about 8, but it was fucking everywhere.
It was everywhere. I remember that because it was the year before I left school, and it's just like, really?
I was living in Liverpool at the time. It was every fucking where I went.
Yeah, same. It was bloody everywhere. It's like, really?
Just finished my GCSE, so it was that and Mumbo number 5, and it's just like
but
Mumbo number 5, I could watch that video now repeatedly, no problem at all. Yeah.
But yeah,
sorry, I just went to my happy place for a minute there.
I get to hear listen to it like doubly this week, because we had in my other job we had like a little garage sale, and we put on some like cheesy hits.
I thought you meant the musical genre.
No,
like, this isn't garage, Becca. No, in my little part-time charity shop we had like a garage sale basically, and we played some
brought in like a CD from like Now 99 or whatever it was, and this was on there, and I was like, I've actually not heard this for a decade, since I left school.
I won't have heard it since I
left. And then I got to hear it again, and I was like, bloody hell, really?
And the thing is,
how much I hated it first time around.
Iron Man 3, I mean, I'll talk about it at the end, but I clearly don't think Iron Man 3's and next week's films are particularly essential, because I think I've watched it once since release. I've watched it at the cinema. I can't remember how many times. I can look that up because I've still got lists of that shit because I'm a geek. But I saw it once on home release, like when it arrived, and I've not seen it since. So I've not seen it in like 4.5 years. So I could barely remember any of this, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a while since I last saw it, but I definitely remember opening with Blue, and I was like, oh, fuck's sake. It's just one of those songs that I think, who thought this was a good idea?
You've got to do something like that, though, because the film is trying to put us back into a different place and time and state of mind, and 1999, the time flies so fast that it doesn't feel like it to us, but it was a very fucking different time from now. In every way,
it does suit it in a way. It does actually fit the tone, and then of that time, it would be that kind of song playing. And
there are a few sort of elements that aren't of that time, but they've put in just to look dated. I mean, Happy's got a bit of a mullet going on. Mullets weren't big in 1999, but it's still funny.
Well, maybe in America they were. I don't know. Or in Bern, certainly.
I think it's even funny because it's Happy. You can kind of see Happy just a decade too late, just like kind of still thinking he's cool.
And the thing is, he's quite a serious guy as well. So
he is, that made me laugh, actually.
But if he wants to be taken seriously, that's the thing. That's kind of it.
And so we see Mike from Neighbours.
Yeah.
There's a reference most people won't get outside of this country and Australia. Guy Pearce. He's probably best known now for Memento and LA Confidential.
We also meet Maya Henderson or Sam Mendes' ex former lover.
Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, Rebecca Hall. Yes.
Yeah, I know Sam Mendes was with her for a while after Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
It's all very interesting. It's all very 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but not quite.
Well, you did very well in your opening thoughts, Becca, because you just randomly went Skyfall and then carried on talking about something else, which I really liked. I'm
trying to avoid any Dying of the Day or Quantum.
So anyway, Thunderball, and anyway.
Well, no, I was just trying to think.
It reminds me of the time when the spy who loved me.
And then in Movie to a Kill, there's this scene here which relates to something else.
It was just really weird because you said Skyfall, and I thought I'm going to get what the big link is in a minute, and they just carried on. I was like, all right, then Skyfall.
Oh, sorry. No, what I was actually getting. Well, I was trying to. I don't. My brain doesn't function properly. It's just basically, some similar sort of films that are coming out and dealing with anxieties at the time and being perhaps a little bit darker. Like in Skyfall, we go back to Bond's roots and see like the more human side to him, and the same here in Iron Man 3 as well. You kind of see like him dealing with the events of the Avengers and the fallout from it and a psychological impact. So again, that's showing the more human side of him a little bit.
You did kind of say that. Okay, yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't explain things very well.
No, that's all right. It's cool.
I'm a bit special. You have to excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay. Mike from Neighbours.
Yeah.
Offers them a place in his company, Acme Bomb Company or something.
It's like AIM, isn't it?
It's a think tank, isn't it? That's basically what it was.
Very expensive think tank.
It was AIM, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose they didn't get any flack from AOL with their instant messenger back in the day.
AOL came rushing straight out of their caravan.
They did say, we're going to sue your ass.
So this is 2013.
That's another late 90s reference for you, oh dear. You can tell you grew up in the 90s when.
Yeah. Hey, You've Got Mail hasn't aged a day as a film, has it?
God.
That's the
when
thing.
you get back and watch Little Shop Around the Corner.
Searching is going to age really badly, isn't it, the film?
Any of those kind of films where it's like a not Facebook movie, but Facebook type film.
I mean, amazingly, not many people talk about The Net anymore today, the film.
No, it's going to die a death. It's interesting in terms of its filmmaking, but I think in terms of the format, it is going to fade away, and the next big thing will come through.
What, The Net?
I didn't mean the internet. I meant the Sandra Bullock film.
Sandra Bullock movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
generally, like computers in films, does look a bit dodgy. So
he was more interested in Rebecca Hall than he was in Mike from Neighbours in this film, which I thought was an interesting decision. And he's a bit cruel here, though, isn't he? Because he says, "I love what you're offering," and offers to go and like meet him on the roof, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, this is like before he's in space. This is basically when he was still a prick, basically.
But the thing is, as well, it's what year it is.
Yeah.
This guy, it was the millennium, which was a big thing back at the time.
it was.
You know, everyone remembers where they spent the millennium. Mine was a bit underwhelming, but it was, you know.
I clearly remember where I was in the millennium.
Go on.
Oh no, I went to London and drank some schnapps because I was underage.
That's a long way to go. You do know you can get schnapps where you live.
I know. No, it's really nice because
It's not good value for money because not only London prices, but you got to factor in the cost of like a rail ticket to go and get your snaps.
It's very expensive. No, we went up because my auntie lives near there, and we ended up stuck behind what was the very new London Eye, and we almost got squished in the crush. It was almost the end of us. But no, it was very good fun. Didn't see a lot, but saw some lovely fireworks. Drank some schnapps because it was very cold, so that kept us all warm. And yeah, had an amazing time. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but not the getting crushed part. But no, that's where I was. New Year's Eve. That was a good laugh.
So yeah, he spent the millennium on a roof by himself,
very cold.
Waiting for Tony.
And
Contemplating suicide as well.
Waited for a long time.
And I was about to say all disabled in that, but that just made me think of the IT cred, isn't it? I'm disabled. Yeah. And at the same
Sorry.
Stark spends the new year knocking off Maya Hansen whilst Aldrich is on the roof by himself.
Yeah. And so, so she tells her about this, what things she's doing, but basically it's like enhancing people's DNA.
Tells him what he's doing. I'm about to suck your cock. Oh, you mean... Right, okay.
Well, that sounds a good hard sex, but before, let me show you the science experiment.
This is a hand job. I'm going to move rhythmically. Okay, right, yes, isn't it like leaves of the plant or something?
Yeah, basically, Happy picks it off,
botanist.
picks up a leaf and it kind of like regenerates itself, so she's like looking to kind of like re-figure out like people's DNA and make them like sort of grow limbs and stuff. And yeah, so Tony kind of just magically sort of like leaves like the willing formula just like drunk one night, because I mean that's another thing at the end of the film. He just kind of goes, "Oh well, I did this drunk. I'm sure I can fix this plot device without any explanation." So anyway, yeah, so that's basically he basically gives her like the thing that makes her kind of evolve the project further on, and then we go straight to modern day, don't we?
We do. What's the first thing we see? It's a Mandarin video, isn't it?
Yeah.
Morocco. And that silly voice that he does.
And you'll never see me coming.
I'll teach you another lesson.
I want money.
Chinese fortune cookies. American invention.
America.
The voice is cool, but it is like these kind of videos we used to get back in the days of Osama.
Yeah, it's very much Bin Laden, isn't it? That kind of iconography, unfortunately.
That's the idea, but we find out what it's about later, but it's normally after an attack taking like credit for it, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's kind of I wasn't going to say what I was going to say, but it's kind of like literally these days when we have various bad actors around the globe. I hate to use that phrase, but they sort of phone up and
it's an appropriate term for bad actors.
But yeah, literally. But I think that's because obviously he's a character playing a part. That sounds really weird, but it's like a film within a film, isn't it? With Ben Kingsley's character. But
we don't know that at this stage.
No, exactly, we don't know.
Something is not right about
this. No, like the voice is a bit hackneyed, and you think, oh, really? But again, it taps into that kind of iconography of aggressors, sort of, and then committing these great these great atrocities, and then claiming responsibility for them afterwards.
Well, it's just the mysterious element of it. Like, who the fuck is he? Like, like. Ooh. Just like the guy going around like sort of like doing all these bombings, like supposedly, and we have no idea who he is. Don't know like where to locate him or anything. It's a bit more of like the mystery behind it. We do start off with him in his little workshop, building the technology that makes his new suit, which kind of draws it to him.
Oh yeah, which is quite
he's
an
dancing
amusing
to like Jingle Bell or
drop the needle. Yeah, which is a bit on the nose because I know Shane Black's all like Christmas, but I can't imagine Tony Stark having this on vinyl and dancing to it somehow. But there you go.
Yeah.
Didn't feel right to me. I do wish the armor was still like this though, rather than generating around him. I like this, I do like this. I quite like this suit as well. There's a bit more gold in it, without looking gaudy. It's much more matte finish than sort of the earlier suits, and it's got like a bit more gold in it. I like this suit. I do like this one, but he's trying to call it to him. He's got like sensors in his wrists, which appeared to be there at the end of the Avengers anyway. So he can call it to him. It can basically map where he is and form around him. But it all starts going wrong, and he's sort of getting smacked in the face and the balls and stuff by it. But it eventually goes right. It's just a little comedy skit, really.
Yeah, introduce a new suit. And sort of display that he's like been working on shitloads, with all the different marks.
Well, we find that out when he talks to her later.
Yeah.
When she says, "What's that, Mark 14 or something?" I can't remember the exact word, but he looks and goes, "Yeah, something like that. It's like 42." So he's been busy. When you think we were on the Mark 7 in the Avengers. So, but I mean, most of them later on. I mean, it's just for the point of the sequence. But if Iron Man is like a character, if you like, you'd think all the suits would have some mark of belonging to the same man, whereas later on all these different suits just look wildly different from each other. But yeah, this still looks like an evolution of the Iron Man armor.
Yeah, like red or silver or some degree.
Yeah.
So where do we go now? Are we at the?
I can't remember if we get to all the banter between him and Pepper first, or whether we go to the Chinese theatre.
I think there's a bit with Pepper, but there's also the bit where he's with Rhodey, discussing, and he gets his first panic attack. Or we first see his panic attack.
They meet at like a little bar restaurant. Well, it's not a bar, is it? Because there's kids in there, but a little sort of family restaurant type place.
Yeah.
And they're just sort of sat up at a counter, and a kid comes over with a drawing of, I think, him or the Avengers or something like that.
With him, the rocket.
And he asks something about the rocket, and he immediately starts to hyperventilate.
Mm.
We get some talk of the Iron Patriot first.
Yeah.
Because War Machine has been
rebranded.
Yeah, War Machine is too aggressive, so therefore they have to do the Iron Patriot instead.
Which is basically just like, okay, well, let's just do a little bit of Captain America then.
Let's just
combine.
I'd never thought of that. I guess it is, because even the colour scheme would be.
Yeah. So let's just say Iron Man or the Iron Man suit and just like, plaster.
I just thought it was the usual, let's like tell ourselves how great we are all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But there you go.
But it would be a little bit of that with the with the American Patriot, being more American rather than being like no one wants to think about war and all this kind of thing. It's like user friendly, but I don't know.
Warmonger. Yeah. Okay. So he tells him about that. Gets the piss taken out of him, rightly so. And then Tony starts having a panic attack. Runs out to get into the suit, basically to get diagnosed. He's like, "What is it? The arc reactor? My heart? Nothing. It's a panic attack. Massive panic attack." So he takes off.
And then he just buggers off. It's like, gotta go, see you later. And then what happens next?
I'm trying to get the order right. So, what do we do? So we've got, so that's 42. I'm trying to think. Yeah, then we had the Mandarin bit. I'm actually calling up a synopsis. I know what happens in this film. It's the order it happens in. Yeah, sorry. We got the Mandarin video. Then we've got him meeting Rhodey, and then we've got Stark Industries where Aldrich comes to meet her.
Yeah, we see Happy Hogan. He's like got.
He's head of security now, and he's taking it. It's not that it's gone to his head. It's just that he's taking it very, very seriously.
And there is an element of true to the character, because there's a bit of dialogue where he says like, "Look, I was a bit of a laughstock when you say like you're Iron Man's bodyguard." So he's got something to prove. So I think he's got this new high profile job. He's like, right, I'm gonna fucking do this. And he's just like,
and he's really doing it. It's great. And
yeah. And just no one's taking him seriously. Like he's
Skype
there.
and stuff, super serious, and he can't hold it the right way. He's got no tech savvy at all.
He can't flip screen, and he's got to like sort of badge.
Yeah. He wants to see everyone's badge, even when Pepper, who's the head of the company, says,
"Where's your badge?"
I know him. Don't worry. He takes a while to calm down.
I do like that. Obviously, skipping ahead, but like at the end of the film, like where he obviously wakes up and the nurse is like next to him, and he's like, "Hold on a minute, she's not wearing a badge." I think that's quite funny. Anyway, back to the.
No, I didn't notice that.
I've never noticed that.
No, when he sort of comes around, obviously they're watching Downton Abbey, and he's like, he wakes up, comes to, and
he's a massive Downton Abbey fan.
Yeah, he's a fan of the show in real life, and he wasn't during that time.
I'm not. I never watched episodes.
I knew Chris would immediately go, well, I'm not.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not detracted.
That's one show I did watch. Ooh.
What do you mean that's one show you did watch? You watched quite a lot of TV compared to, actual TV.
Very occasionally, like if there was something quite famous, I would watch it, but I generally didn't tend to watch like a lot of TV. I watch it on catch up, for example. Like a lot of the shows that are on at the moment, I've not seen.
You're always like, Live and Let Die is on ITV4.
It's like I keep an eye out for Bond on TV.
Watch it with adverts and shit.
No, I keep an eye out for any Bond on telly. That's the reason for that.
I did once switch the TV on in the last year or two when Casino Royale was on, and I couldn't resist. But I would never go out of my way to watch Bond on fucking ITV.
No, well, unless it's an event, like it's the latest one on TV or something. I'I might stick it on.
But even then, I'll have had it on fucking Blu-ray.
But say, like, if you haven't got it on DVD or Blu-ray, or if you've only got a TV to watch it on, then
you're clearly not serious enough.
Then enjoy.
Don't deserve our support.
But I just think that was a bit harsh. I just think it's a bit funny, that's all. So I'm always like, oh, Bond on TV, or And I was gutted when it went to Sky for a little bit. So I was like, no, what are you doing?
Some of them glued to parts of their body.
Anyway.
Yes.
Moving on.
So yeah, Aldrich turns up to sort of, he's fixed. He's looking like. Well, he's looking like Mike from Neighbours now.
Yeah, he's a bit more buff.
There's kind of Neighbours connection, isn't there? Because you've got Chris Hemsworth as well. And obviously Guy Pearce. So there's a little bit of a Neighbours Home and Away Australian soap connection.
It's just a shame Russell Crowe isn't in this this series.
Yeah, I know, it is. And then it would be or Kylie. Or even Jason Donovan.
He's in the DC universe. Yeah.
I know. So there we are.
But so he turns up to talk to him about Extremis, which basically came out of the idea he presented to Tony. And it's he basically shows a hologram of his brain, doesn't he? He's got something behind his ear, and it's basically switched on parts of the brain that can basically mend you. So
yeah,
that's about it. And she's like, "Oh, you're so buff."
But he's very, very like sort of cheesy and a bit. You can instantly tell he's a little bit of a wrong one. It's just a bit too like.
He's a bit too smooth. This is the problem when people talking about Bond again. When people go, he should be suave. No, suave normally means fucking oily, and that's what he is. He's a bit like oily, but she's still a bit like. Ooh, no.
Yeah, I think there is. I think an element of like, ooh, but.
Ooh, yeah, exactly.
There's a little bit of like, oh, he's he's buff, but also a bit. I'm not sure I trust him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like what we're going off, but
yeah. But yeah, he's effectively shilling for funding, and she doesn't want to go down that route.
He plays to like well, not necessarily her ego, but kind of say, well, Tony's not in charge. Tony said no, and and there's a new king in town, kind of thing. So he tries to kind of persuade her that way, but it doesn't work. It's just basically like a really dangerous idea. The fact that you just alter our DNA.
Yeah. And then she heads home, and Tony's got this fucking great bunny rabbit, is it? for her.
Yeah.
Not the fucking sex toy. We mean like literally a stuffed animal thing.
And not that sex toy.
Not that sex toy.
So, yeah. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking, really.
I don't know what. Yeah, where are you going to put that?
Oh, a guy's going to go around and knock the wall down. Why?
I don't know. It's just this. His brain is flighty. He's all over the place at the moment. And it isn't her. Well, it is. We think it's him. He's dressed as Iron Man. We think.
Yeah.
And he's basically doing it by remote control.
Yeah.
Which really pisses her off. Because she walks downstairs to
and
meet
probably
him.
the rest of the audience, majority later
I
on.
I really didn't like this. As I say, if the suit can act independent of you at all times, why would you ever be in the suit?
Yeah.
It just cheapens it. It really does. It is up there with curing death in Star Trek. And of course, they still have it, because in Homecoming, like, the suit meets with Spider-Man without him in it. But broadly speaking now, when they're in battle, he's in it. And we never question, well, he doesn't need to be there. I suppose that's one thing of it growing out of him. He needs to be in it for that. But, yeah, I never liked this particularly. But, I mean, it was all right as a little joke at this stage of the film, but I really didn't like it. But, I mean, it's just Tony. You just think, like, to keep these films going, it's a bit like Deadpool. You have to keep the character simple in some respects, or at least undo any progress they make. Because the most working version of the character is a bit like this.
Yeah.
You know, she goes downstairs, and after everything, and nearly losing everything, and the second one when he flirted with disaster in his life, and nearly died, and everything else, he's having dinner. He's had dinner by himself. It's, you know, they were supposed to have some sort of dinner, and he's eaten by himself. You know, and it's just like, and in a minute he's going to effectively call the Mandarin to his house, and you just think, like, he made more progress than this. They always have to slightly reset him, not all the way back, but like some of the way back. There is character development because he's got PTSD.
I think that's the thing that kind of makes it work better here, because it's not just a case of, oh, he hasn't learned. He clearly does want to be better for Pepper, but he feels he can't, or he struggles to find a way how to, because he's struggling with other things, or he's fixated with, he's trying to solve one problem by making another problem, by basically it's a facturation by his work, and he just can't sleep. He seems to be like a guy just broken. So it's like, he's struggling to, like, wanting to do what he really wants, but
this does lead into Age of Ultron. But even then, that undoes some of what he's learned. And then when we get to Civil War, he's still feeling a load of guilt. And I suppose that is from Age of Ultron. But constantly, they are moving the character on, but they're having to undo elements. You know, at the end of this film, he realizes he can't do everything. He can't protect the world. He can't be everywhere. And in Age of Ultron, he's like, I can protect the world. I can be everywhere if I just build this thing. And I suppose there's part of me that thinks that's a logical next step. And there's a part of me that thinks, yeah, but you learnt not to even try that at the end of the last film. But there you go. It is one of those things. And it does end up, he's having some trauma dream about New York after this. And basically, one of the Iron Man suits comes into the bedroom.
Yeah,
I don't know how that works.
It kind of holds, like, it kind of holds Pepper down, doesn't it? I mean, he said oh, that shouldn't have happened, but he'll have to, like, reprogram it. She's just pissed off, like,
it's not gay if it's in a three-way.
Oh dear.
With a hoodie in the middle, some leeway. Yeah.
Strange fucking three-way, isn't it?
Real three-way.
And an Iron Man suit.
Is it technically a three-way? I don't think it counts.
Well, no, it doesn't count because I don't think they got saucy after this. To be honest,
exactly. I don't think they did either.
But he immediately sort of smashes through it. Pepper's pissed off, goes to sleep somewhere else. So things are not going very well. and Tony can't sleep. I think he tells us at some point he's been up like 4 days or something.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Happy is following the fellow who is with.
He's following Thingy from 24 season 3.
I think is it yeah that's it. He's what was it? Is it Slevin or Sleet or something like that?
Eric Slevin.
Yeah, and he's meeting a dude who's a bit unshoveled.
He played Chase Edmonds in 24.
Yes, good season of that 24.
Okay, season of 24. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. It was no season 2, thankfully.
So I'm a 1, 4, and 5 guy.
Yeah, 5's the best one.
Yeah, that's the one with the dodgy press.
Yeah. I think 4's pretty decent. I think 3.
4's good because he's dating someone I quite like.
3
was okay.
3's good. I think 3's pretty good, and then you have 4, which is solid, and 5 is great.
5's great. 1's brilliant as well.
Yeah.
6 is shit. In fact, they changed their mind on what the plot was about 8.
I still enjoy 6. I still enjoy 6 for its flaws. It's a mess, but it kind of has its.
So anyway, I'm not going to remember his name. So Chase.
Yes.
Let's call him Chase.
He's following Chase. Why is he following Chase?
Because he looks suspicious. He's got a bad feeling about this Aldrich character. You know, he's just basically following a hunch. So he just like he runs a plate in his car. He kind of like just follows him, and he meets
Chinese theatre, which is a very famous theatre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff in a briefcase, and he's like sort of, oh, well, let me help you with your stuff, and then he runs into Chase, and rather than do the sensible thing, which is just kind of act like, oh, you're just there casually, and then just like go on your day, he calls him out saying, yeah, game's over, I've got the evidence, even though he doesn't know what the fuck he has anyway. And yeah, that basically caused like a kind of a fight happens, and then the other guy explodes.
Well, before that, when he bumps into him, he notices that like a sort of red glow in his face.
Yeah.
When he punches him on the nose appears to break and then sort of mends itself, and the cut heals. Certainly, the cut heals. I think it was broken as well. Something is clearly wrong, and Chase said to the other guy, "Can you regulate?" So something's going on. There's something in these people. We don't know what it is yet. I think already at this stage, unless you're an idiot, you'd think it was linked to Killian's research. It has to be. He's been sort of experimenting with the capabilities of the human body, so it has to be done. But yeah, the place explodes, and Happy's hospitalised, very, very badly injured. In fact, if he hadn't been, I think its blast radius should have killed him, but there was something in the way.
Yeah, he's put into a coma, wasn't he? And that leads Tony to seek revenge.
And then you get straight to the other
obviously
Mandarin
Chase
video.
Can regenerate so he can walk away, and then the Mandarin takes responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Actually, if you think about it, all the kind of home team gets quite shaken up, don't they? Because obviously, Happy's in a coma for much of the film.
Yeah.
Pepper gets done in.
Yeah.
And so it's all kind of.
And Grumpy's just feeling up Snow. Yeah.
Sleepy, Dopey, and Doc. I don't know what happened to them, but.
Peppery.
Yeah.
Peppery.
Pepper's put into jeopardy, isn't she? Unfortunately,
She is.
Yeah. But she comes out right. So
Tony's now all angry and shit.
He's all revengey and shit.
Goes to see Happy, make sure he's got like Downton Abbey on, and as he comes out, there's reporters. And actually, the more I'm thinking about it as I talk through, I've always thought this is Tony being a twat. But then if he's had no sleep in days.
He's going to be a knob, isn't he?
Just this his friend in hospital, and
like, fuck you then! Right, come and get me.
Come and get me. This is where I live. This is my number. You, me. Let's do it.
So he gives him his address and says, "I'm not scared of you."
Yeah.
But the next scene I do like. The next scene is Tony, sort of the detective. This is the bit of him that I like. This is the bit that is a little bit Batman-like. Trying to sort of, the rich guy trying to figure out with the tech at his disposal what's happened.
Yeah. And so it basically sort of scans the area and then finds like the
it's the
dog tags. Yeah.
It's the temperature it went off as well. So it's military dog tags. So there were no active military personnel there, so what are they there? And he just looks at past incidences for like things like that. What soldiers were there, and also I think it's the temperature. It's the temperature.
I think he finds a place where he had a similar instance where where the Mandarin hadn't claimed. So he's like, okay, we'll see if we can find like a connection here, and he's sort of like, plan a fight path for this, and then the doorbell rings, and it's Rebecca Hall again.
Yeah. She walks in and they're all like, I used to do her. I'm currently
I wish she had a bigger role in this film.
Doing her.
Well, it was originally going to be Jessica Chastain.
The casting, the whole thing that led to Rebecca Hall's casting is quite interesting, as you say. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
tell us the story, Chris. Tell us the story.
Oh no, that was it. It was going to be Jessica Chastain. She was cast in it, but had to drop out due to scheduling, and then he went to Rebecca Hall. That's as much the story is. But but apparently there's a lot. As the film develops, like there was a lot about the character that was dropped. I think it was a little bit. They didn't really.
I think. Well, I mean, Rebecca Hall is not a superstar, but she was a reasonably sort of sized actor by this point. She'd been in Frost Nixon and a few other things, and I couldn't believe how small the role was. And it doesn't surprise me that it's probably not quite what she signed up for. Yeah,
I think at some stage she would have been more the villain type thing. It would have. I think I can see it being like it was really her. Like it was really her being like the lead baddie rather than say Mike from Neighbours. So, but I don't know. I reckon it's just got changed here and there. So so basically she's there to kind of get Tony out of there because she really wants to just sort of like, he's going to be useful. I need to know what he knows to complete my study, basically. And Pepper's in the process of moving, or like say like get Tony away from the place because giving the address to a terrorist. And then
everybody knows his address.
Yeah, but he's got like news flying all over the place, and then there's a missile flying at all of a sudden.
Yeah, just didn't get a lot of warning here, do they?
They don't what? Sorry.
The missile, the warning. They don't get a lot of warning. This is about to happen.
Which you think, being like Tony, you think there would be, wouldn't there? There would be. You think you have like Jarvis come on like
early alert systems,
like incoming missile.
It was okay. A lot of this was in the trailer, the suit forming around her and stuff like that. So, he manages to get... His first thought is to protect her, which is, I suppose, progress. So the Mark 42, the main suit, he sends that to sort of cover her. Again, there's a bit of me that's always like questioning the logic of some of this, because the suit only forms around him because he's got the things in his wrist. But okay, it protects her and she gets Maya out. And then basically calls the suit back to him, and it's basically effectively too late. The house falls into the sea, and Tony's in it.
The suit's not functioning properly because it isn't fully calibrated or whatever it is.
I was never quite sure. I thought it was just damaged, but it
could
may
be
that it's just not ready.
Yeah.
Jarvis basically detaches a hand to basically turn around to pull Tony out. Tony passes out, I think, but he does, because when he wakes up, he wonders where the hell he is.
And he's en route to Tennessee, or wherever it was.
He's in Tennessee. He lands in Tennessee, and then Jarvis basically is malfunctioning himself. So Jarvis shuts down, and he's there on a cold night in Tennessee, which is some distance from California, to say the least. Tony's there with a suit that's not working, no power, no Jarvis, and in the middle of a place he doesn't really know.
So that's basically, and he starts to drags it in. Basically, he drags it to a telephone, sends a message to Pepper, and
saying, "I'm sorry, I'm a twat."
Yeah. She...
Sorry, that's made me think of Bottom. Then I'm sorry, I'm a twat. 10 times. Yes.
Certain fans will appreciate that reference.
Yeah. Yeah. He basically goes into a garage somewhere.
He meets a kid who isn't as annoying as you might expect.
On paper, I'd have hated this. The kid's all right, actually.
He's actually quite, for a little kid, he's not too bad.
He is signed for the next Avengers film, so we will see him next week. Next year.
I do think it probably works with a character like Tony, with a character who isn't going to be who is basically not going to sort of act all kiddie like in front of him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he just carries on as himself, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he kind of works.
Here, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, especially at the end where he sort of just drives. Yeah, you're just gonna leave me like that? Yep.
Yeah. I do like that.
So yeah, get carried away.
This kid Harley knows who he is.
Yeah.
No, he knows that's Tony Stark. And again, we've got lots of questions about New York. This kid is very talkative. Again, on paper, I'd be like, "Oh, that's not good." It works okay.
Meanwhile, Pepper is like basically got in a car with Rebecca Hall and adding some exposition to things before
this
getting...
is a bit. I would say this section of the film does get a bit Basil exposition-y. But it's good fun though.
Well, it's like you get two people in the car. You get, well, there's a chance to explain some things.
You
have to get information across to an audience somehow.
Yeah,
How clunkily do you do it? It wasn't too bad.
Show,
obviously,
Pepper
realizes. Yes, but it is normally them talking.
I know.
I mean, she finds.
As you say, you got to do it somehow. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get like a scene where basically.
I mean, show don't tell applies when you're talking about. I mean, a film that really, really breaks that rule but still works is something like Inception. Because the concept behind the film is difficult, so you have to have the characters stand around.
How else are you going to do it?
The characters stand around explaining it to each other. Lucas in the prequels, the characters would stand around and explain where the plot was, where the characters were, why they were doing it, what's it for. That's where you're like telling, not showing. I think fundamentally, characters on their way something's still progressing the plot.
Oh god, yeah, no, definitely, of course, yeah. There's a way.
Fact that they'll talk to each other about what's just happened is reasonably organic.
Yeah, it's fine. They do it very well. I'm not calling out a problem with it, but it's just a bit Basil exposition-y, but they do it very well.
I just like pointing out, it's a bit of exposition, and people explaining things to each other, but it has to happen though, doesn't it? But yeah, she's basically explaining that Mike from EastEnders is suspected.
Mike from EastEnders.
I was going to say, hold on a minute.
They're all the same to me.
Sorry to anyone there who works on Neighbours. We took away one of your iconic characters there.
We went to a different country.
We now return him to you, Mike from Neighbours.
We claimed him as our own.
So Mike from Neighbours what?
Is now working for the Mandarin, and we get a clip of him basically referring to being all bad guy like now, and about a sort of third to the master as the Mandarin is coming in and about to do another one of his broadcasts. And you get another broadcast of him basically sort of like telling the president to ring in the number or he shoot someone in the head.
Right.
And what's the reasoning for this? Because he says, like, ring this number or shoot him in the head. So the president does it and he just shoots him anyway. So what was the point of it?
Well, the president probably know he was going to do that. Why he shot him in the head, don't fucking know.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
I don't know, maybe sort of like a control thing. But anyway, so yeah, we get that. We get Tony going to the site of that where that bomb was and doing some detective
and it's
stuff.
like 4 years later, but okay. None of that really made an awful lot of sense to me. But he starts asking questions. Wasn't it a bar he goes in?
Yeah, because he's gonna.
Yeah, the mother of the victim, one of the victims or one of the soldiers. Yeah.
He finds out she's got a file and she's waiting for someone to come meet her. Yeah. It's like, oh well, I think you weren't supposed to. It wasn't me you were actually supposed to be waiting for, I don't think. And then he runs into another extremist henchwoman.
Who's posing as a
FBI,
agent.
yeah.
Or Homeland Security, one of the two. I've found the timing of this. This is an attack that happened 4 years before.
Yeah.
How would they know to be there that night? Doesn't that all seem a bit odd? If it had been like the previous attack, a couple of months before, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it was something they were tracking Tony.
Unless they were tracking Tony, but then they flew off thinking Tony was dead. The Iron Man armor sort of came out of the water at the last minute.
Unless it just happened coincidence, it was a loose end or something. There was still, I don't know.
Okay, all right, but they know he's in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Chase from 24's there.
Yeah.
As well.
So we have a bit of an action scene shootout, which I kind of like. It's like Tony trying to basically in the action, but without any of his suit or technology to back him up.
Yeah.
So he's actually thinking on his feet. So I do like the whole a cheap trick and cheesy pickup.
It's a nice bit of continuity as well, because Cap asked in the last film, "What would you be without the suit?" Well, we're finding out.
And yeah, it's good time to see think on his feet and all that. And yeah, they sort of they get away, they get the file, and he leaves the kid. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, which is quite relieving because he's gonna be stuck with a kid the entire film now. But no, it works quite well.
I've never quite understood. The kid isn't fucking needed, really. But anyway, okay.
I think he just needs like someone to help him out with stuff. It's like, you got to meet.
I suppose it's someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
we've got the president phone call thing, and then we've got Tony calling Rhodey.
Yes.
Because they think they've found where the Mandarin is.
And it's supposedly it turns out to be a sweatshop, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's basically a trap for him because they basically catch the Iron Patriot by one of the extremist people. Tony's en route to Miami because he picked up the signal where it led to, and he was like thinking, that can't be right. But he goes there anyway, and. Yeah, are we going straight to the main? We've not forgotten something.
I think we have. What have we forgotten? We have.
I think. Well, we get the reveal when Pepper gets captured, haven't we?
We've got. I seem to remember Tony in the van with one of his biggest fans.
Shit! Yes. I think that's probably where you find the.
At the moment they don't know where the address is. He needs to. Yeah, that's it. That's it. He needs to hack into servers.
Yes.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
So basically, we figure out at this point that Extremis is basically, if the body can't deal with it, it superheats and explodes.
Yeah.
And what's basically happening is they're exploding, and they're being covered up as terrorist actions.
Yes.
Which would effectively tell us what the reveal is about to be, but I wasn't thinking about it at the time particularly.
Tony at the time reckons, and it's like quite a good sort of that it's basically selling a functionary weapon. So he's like, well, he's going to sell it to a terrorist or whatever. So, so he's on route to go to where we think the Mandarin is. It was somewhere in Miami, and he finds the suit isn't ready because it's not charging in the proper way. So he goes, right, what do I need to do? So he has to think on his feet and make up stuff.
Yeah. So we know his suit's going to be ready at some point.
Yeah.
In storytelling terms, so that's reasonably well done. But yeah, he just creates like a little glove that's got various things, and I think he picks up that kid's potato fucking gun and things like that. But it's quite nice the way he sort of gets into the Miami place and stuff like that. That's all really well done, and it was just nice to see him out. It was just nice to see something different.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, with superheroes, I want to see them in their outfit. I do. It's a bit like watching Star Trek. I want to see the Enterprise. You know,
you want to see the money shot.
You're missing something when it's not there. But this is his third film. We've got to try something a little bit different. I did like this.
Yeah, it's like I said before. It's like I don't think with Iron Man. The appeal is actually Tony being Tony, really. So it's
less so the suit, yeah. Whereas Batman, you do need the suit.
Yeah. So he goes, and this is where the big reveal, isn't it, of the Mandarin, and it turns out it's an actor.
Yeah, it's an actor. But basically, he's been got in to make these videos to explain away all the problems that have happened with Experis. No, it was a terrorist thing. Hence, there's never any threats to carry out anything. There's only taking credit for them afterwards.
Yeah.
This guy cannot stay on the topic for 2 seconds. He's screaming at football. He's drinking a lot. He's got women
fall
around.
Asleep.
Yeah.
High on drugs.
Join the girls.
And all the millions of Iron Man fans who never heard of the character 5 years before are now fucking going furious.
I loved it. I thought it was really funny.
I like it.
But it also kind of makes sense.
There will be people out there who complained who were big Iron Man fans. I'm not saying that, although I still think their argument's invalid for all the reasons I said earlier. But I'm sure a lot of people, it's all retrospective. Like, well, that's not how the comics are. You've just looked up what the comic was,
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's basically it's all a front. It's all a front for this extremist thing. And then Tony gets captured.
Yes, and then he's tied up, isn't he?
He's tied up. Maya's there, so she's been working with him all the way through. And I think they think Tony can sort of help them with it, largely because obviously all these massive explosions are not meant to be happening. Yeah, they're not meant to be happening. And they've also got Pepper, obviously, because she was with Pepper.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to sort of inject it into her. So I think that's effectively to get him to play ball.
Yeah, because basically he wouldn't have came up with the willing formula to get them where they are now.
Yeah.
So they're like, all right, well, need Tony on board.
I'm always doing that pissed at New Year's parties. Just fucking, there you are, and that'll sort fucking Parkinson's out. Fancy another drink. And hopefully some sex. Yeah, okay. So then he shoots Maya, and I never got that. I was just like, oh, all right then.
I think he did
waste
that.
Of Rebecca Hall.
I mean, plot-wise, it's there to kind of say, it's kind of given, well...
And I mean it.
Yeah, well, it's also like extra incentive for Tony to kind of like do what he wants. Cause it's like, well, you'll do it my way. Is the only way you're going to save Pepper? In a way, because you haven't got her as a scapegoat to do it for you. So there's that element of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I always felt there was probably a bit more to that character. But
yes.
No, there you go. So yeah, so he shoots her and then does his bad guy thing, walks off, gets Rhodey out the suit, and then breathes fire, which is kind of like crazy, but I love the way Rhodey just reacts to it. It's like, you breathe fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was really cool. It's like, you breathe fire now.
Yeah. Oh, acid reflux.
That's a massive reflux.
Yeah.
Take some Andrew's
that's an Incredibles 2 reference, isn't it?
That's
acid reflux.
Yeah, that's the advice of Becca Andrews, heir to the Andrews Liver Salt Empire.
We're clearly not there to the Empire.
Wait, heir? You haven't got it yet. That's why you're not.
Suck 'em and see.
Yeah.
That's always my advice.
That's so funny.
Suck it and see. Yes.
So it's there where we find out they plan to sort of like use the Iron Patriot suit to get on board Air Force One.
The fact Becca's gone off to giggle.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. I was
Right,
trying to drink at the same time, and I was like, "Oh, drowning."
he summons. Oh, yes. You turned into Kenneth Williams.
Oh no. Oh.
That happens when Becca has a drink.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, no.
So Tony summons the suit, doesn't he? From Tennessee.
Yeah.
All that way.
Not realizing that most of it's like locked up, so that's why
Yeah.
he's like don't get to him as much.
Takes
But
a long time.
yeah, you have a little banter with the bad guys, which I kind
How
of
does
enjoy.
he discover Ultridge is going to attack Air Force One?
It's basic info with the. Well, you have the action scene first, don't we? But so basic info with the Trevor Slattery.
Okay.
He says like, oh, I don't know, so I know where they'll be, and I know like this. There's also a bit of Rhodey as well, like with the need in the suit.
Okay. He's going to attack Air Force One. I love that movie. Bastard. Okay. So they're up against it for time, which is why him calling the suit to him is a bit like, fucking come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Chase from 24's in the Iron Patriot suit.
yeah,
He'll probably be known as Chase from 24.
Yeah.
he's quite a good actor though. He's been in other stuff. But, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The Badgedale. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, he's quite competent.
he's a competent.
The critics rave.
Most known from 24 mainly.
James Badgedale was competent. Oh, stick that on the poster. Brilliant.
It was all right, says the Guardian.
It's okay. Oh, you can tell I'm getting tired now. Oh dear. Right. I'll shut up now. Oh,
So anyway, Chase from 24, a competent actor,
he's very competent. He does very well in this film.
is in the Iron Patriot suit, so he's welcomed aboard because
Yeah.
they like their Patriot.
I mean, I always thought, like, is it strange how he's not talking? And while a guy in a suit who flies getting on board a plane, isn't that a bit? I don't know. No.
But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, but so it's not long after he basically, does this thing. He basically kidnaps the president, kills a few people, and then Iron Man shows up.
Yeah,
and then kills the competent actor.
he did blow a holes in the basically survivors. People are falling out of
Yeah.
the aircraft
And I quite like this sequence.
competently.
Competently, yeah.
Competently, did it really well.
Yeah.
No, I do quite like the sequence, even though like it does end with the another reminder that he's not in the suit.
I did look it up earlier. I saw this film twice, once in 3D. No, the 3D conversions on Marvel weren't great. They weren't bad, as in that looks terrible. They were underwhelming, as in they didn't really do very much. But you can tell a lot of it is time and effort because they really put their time and effort into this sequence. In that the 3D was shit in most of the rest of the film and really good in this sequence. This is pretty good until the reveal at the end, which fucking ruined it for me. But yeah, he's got to think because he's Jarvis. He's fixed Jarvis, and he's saying to Jarvis, "How many are there?" And it's like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And he said,
How many
can I hold? 4.
Yeah.
And he just basically gets them to sort of daisy chain, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which isn't a sexual practice. We're not talking about anything rude.
The only line of dialogue that I thought, why did you leave that in there? Was like, "I'll electrify your arm, and you won't be able to let go." And I was like,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Yeah, so you won't be able to close your fist or something like that. Oh, okay.
Well, it's more wouldn't be able to let go, as in he wouldn't be able to open his hand.
Right,
Yeah.
open your hand, yeah, that's it.
Right. Okay. Well, why would he? I can't think that would be a problem anyway. The suit is somewhat independent of him in that it can do things he can't do.
Yeah.
It's got strengths he doesn't have. In other words,
No, but
it can already lift and do things he can't do.
He's sending like he was saying to like I'll send an electric pulse to you, as in like the people are falling, so you won't be able to open.
I see.
And I was like, how did that work?
That would just electrocute them, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But but it's one of the things like had he not had that line of dialogue, I wouldn't have even thought about it.
Well, it's a pity that we
Yeah,
don't
it's
have
not
like a
out.
competent actor like Chase from 24 to explain it to us. He's gone now. That's
Dear.
He saves them all. It's quite a good sequence, and then just as he's finished saving them, he flies off, gets hit by a truck. It turns out Tony wasn't in it at all, and it really, really pissed me off.
So I enjoy it in the moment because it's quite a nice, like, like nice little shot.
He's like, oh shit, but he is like we are when we lose on a video game.
Yeah.
We're totally like, fuck. I don't like it, and people say, and people will say about the comics there in a positive way about the film, in that like, yeah, he's always been able to do that, and he's always had loads of suits and all the rest of it. It's like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all. If he doesn't need to be in the suit, he would never be in the suit. There would never be any danger. What's the point?
It doesn't bother me too much, but I completely see your argument, and I kind of agree.
Iron Man might as well be a fucking drone.
Yeah.
So I don't like it. I can get on board with it in as far as they've pretty much ignored it now. And if he does need to have his presence somewhere where he's not available, he can send the suit. The way it's used now is kind of all right, but it's underpinned by really faulty logic. Why would he ever be in any of the suits?
It will be like... So, like, it'll be... Would it be okay if it was like, he can do it, but there's certain limitations? He can't do this.
Like, where it really needs full beams, I've got to be in it.
Yeah.
Little things it can do independently. I mean, I guess in the Avengers, he's got to look like a team player, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's pointless them storming that place at the start of, like, Age of Ultron and him saying, I'm just going to sit in the van, is that all right? We're risking our lives. We're just going to sit back there. Oh, all right, I'll get in the fucking suit. You know?
Go on then.
But yeah, I've never liked it. Always thought it was completely fucking unnecessary, and glad that they've largely dropped it. And of course, if there's one plus to the current version of the suit, which I don't like, but if there's one plus to it, it's that it now effectively grows out of him. So he has to be in it. Although presumably are other previous versions of the suit he can call on if necessary. So where do we go from there?
Sorry, coughing. Yeah, we go... They're on a boat.
The Patriot suit has basically covered the president, hasn't it?
Well, we get the reveal that the vice president is basically in on it because it's more of a deal. Like they'll give him the power of the presidency, and he'll like sanction like the deals, the funding for the research, or they'll waive the laws.
Yeah. Well, I actually learnt of Miguel Ferrer's live on air recording this show. If you remember, I don't know which episode it was, but I was like, Miguel Ferrer's. We were recording at the time. The late Miguel Ferrer died not at any great age. He was about 61 or something like that. So this would have been one of his last few films, really, I guess. I'm just trying to look to see what he did afterwards. Let me have a look.
He still managed to finish his Twin Peaks stuff. I think he was still doing his TV show, like
he died
NCIS.
January 2017. I bet we were probably doing Superman around then. Would have been possibly.
That rings a bell.
It would have either been it might have been a Bond commentary. More likely, it would have been one of the early Superman episodes. Yes, he did do. He did some voice work. He did Twin Peaks. He was doing.
It's
NCIS.
RoboCop is what he's most.
He did quite a lot after Iron Man.
He was quite busy, wasn't he?
Yeah, but some of them quite small things. I never watched Twin Peaks after. Well, I watched the first few episodes nearly 30 years ago. But
sure.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Miguel Ferrer is the vice president. Yes, we do get that reveal.
Yeah, I completely forgot he was in the film because he popped up and I was like, oh, it's Miguel Ferrer, and I was like, oh, it's sad that we lost him last year.
I thought it was longer ago than that actually, but then I suppose it is about 19 months, something like that. Yeah. Okay. 20 months ago.
Or thereabouts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where from there? They're going to kill him on live TV or something, aren't they?
Yeah.
President.
Yeah, basically. So they go down to the docks. It's like,
doesn't he have a disabled kid or something, the vice president?
Yeah, that's why.
That's why.
That's his like motive for it.
Yeah. I was just thinking of the current administration and thinking, surely couldn't it just be because he's an asshole? But no, he's got a disabled girl. All right.
And yeah, so why are we not? Yeah, so the basically good old action sequence on the docks, like a good old 80s actioner.
Yeah, it's
on the
cool.
docks. Yeah, I know. I expect Martin Riggs to appear.
It is very of the era, isn't it, for sure?
I fucking hate all of this.
Oh no.
What do you hate about it? Is it just the suits, or is it like?
I think it's just that. It's just it can't settle on a tone, so it's trying to be sort of comedic but really tense at the same time.
Yeah. It
goes on way fucking too long. You keep getting sort of interruptions for Tony and fucking Rhodey to talk to each other. I just don't like it, and the suits become completely sort of what's the word? Expendable. I don't mean expendable because obviously Tony doesn't care if they get damaged, but it's like they're being cut like a knife through butter, and you're thinking this is meant to be like variants on Iron Man tech. This isn't like the drones in Age of Ultron. This is like various versions of the suits he's made, and the plot requires them to be shit. 30-odd versions of Iron Man should be fucking kicking the arse of everyone, no trouble. So I just think it's a bit lazy. It devalues Iron Man completely.
Well,
and it just doubles down on this thing of Tony doesn't need to be in the suit.
The suits are basically controlled by Jar. Well, basically like given commands. So they've given simple like commands. So they're not like in control of like say Tony. They are just like so they aren't going to be limited to that extent. They're more just like just make it rain kind of thing. Yeah, I mean he is decidedly gonna blow him up at the end though, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So he's not like going like, oh no, my suit.
It's not that Tony. When I said expendable, I don't mean. Oh, but Tony would really care about them. I don't mean it like that. I mean they're
to the audience.
They're too easy. Yeah, they're too easy to defeat. They're interchangeable. There's loads of them. They've made them look bizarrely different from each other, which is purely for the audience's benefit. That you're looking at different things, and that doesn't follow the design philosophy of Iron Man so far. Why is he suddenly at Mark 25 created something that looks fucking wildly different, and then Mark 26, for example, is wildly different again, and by the time we get to 42, it looks like Iron Man again? I'm thinking too much is the problem, but they've doubled down on my biggest problem in the film, is the fact that if the suit doesn't need Tony to be in the suit, why would fucking Tony ever be in the suit? Hence Iron Man might as well be a fucking drone controlled like it's a video game. And if that's the case, that really does Iron Man undermine the character. And it's one of those things, like I've said, a bit like Into Darkness, where you've introduced a couple of logical outcomes to what's just happened, or a couple of logical extrapolations of what's just happened, that for us to move on with the character we've got to ignore. And the whole of the final action sequence is based around that whole conceit that the suits can be fairly independent and they don't require Tony to be in them. So I don't really like it, and a part of the problem is it goes on too long, and the third part of the problem is, I mean, it's mitigated by the fact that Pepper's there, but the whole plot is to save the president. Well, I suppose a lot of American people might be respectful of, like, The Office, if you like, so the very fact it's the president would be a big deal. Well, alright, it's William Sadler, but I've only just fucking met him. I couldn't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care. Why would I care if this guy dies? I've never met him before.
Because it's William Sadler.
Yeah, and he said Henry Dumbass in the Shawshank Redemption. Yes, it is William Sadler, and I like William Sadler, but
he's on Twitter, don't you know? He doesn't follow us, but
he doesn't. Well, I'm shocked.
William, if you're out there, if you're listening, please give us a follow at Expect Us to Talk on Twitter.
Yeah, he's sat there with Samuel L. Jackson, with the Queen, and
and they're all going, you can follow these guys on Twitter, you know. He's going, I'm not doing it. And Riddick Bowe's trying to follow us, but he can't like type properly with his boxing gloves on.
No, he's trying hard though.
Yeah. And the Queen's just laughing away because she's a bit pissed. And she's got a lot of egg whites in her by now. So yeah,
I wish you'd tell me when you're going to say these things.
The one bit,
goes everywhere.
The one bit is obviously Pepper's been infected as well, so
yeah,
that there's a bit of tension there because this is very unstable.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to the other thing because when they do the whole "all Pepper's died," which I kind of think, would it be brave if they just kept that? If it's just like, right, okay, Pepper Potts, just kill her off and make it kind of make it a bit more like a loss for Tony. Would that have been better? Do you think?
I would suggest at this stage, yes, but with hindsight, probably not. At this stage, I always thought of Gwyneth Paltrow as somebody who didn't want to do these films, really a bit like Natalie Portman, not as up her own ass as Natalie Portman, but certainly a bit of the same ilk that, like, well, I signed to do it, I hadn't done much for a few years, but it's not really my thing. And of course, she wasn't in sort of the sequels as much. She was in the Avengers, but not very much. I suppose that makes sense with what the film's about and all the other characters in it. But I always felt that, like, she would be slowly eased out of all of it. And with that being the case, at this stage, I would have said, well, you might as well kill her off. It's like Jane Foster in Thor. She's not going to be there for very long anyway. But actually, even though she's not in these films that much, there's still a nice chemistry between the two of them. There's still a couple. I mean, it really surprised me when she turned up at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
I really was like, I thought she was having nothing more to do with these. So she obviously doesn't feel the way about the series I wrongly ascribed to her. And her and Tony still have, like, a life together. So I think I've in a kind of slightly sappy way, I've kind of enjoyed seeing that. So in some respects, I'm really glad they didn't take her out of this at this point.
Yeah.
In the context of this film and where we were at the time, I thought they'd pussied out.
I mean, there's probably some truth to that as well, but it's almost like, well, we can't think of, like, anything to do with her at this point, so it's like, well, do almost like damsel in distress thing, but
it's a bit Mary Jane, isn't it?
But yeah, but they give her this thing, but obviously we know. I can't see that being like a good thing to have keep on. So we know they're going to fix it, but if they're going to fix it, it just kind of like cheapens the whole thing. Anyway, it's something that is not necessarily that believable. Like,
that's the problem. That's the problem. In the same way that the suits are as like expendable's the wrong word because that's about people's interest or emotional attachment to them. But the suits are
irrelevant,
they're as disposable and beatable. It's easily beatable as the plot needs them to be. In the same way, Tony is as smart as the plot needs him to be. For large parts of this film, Extremis is this massively fucking dangerous thing that, is a real potential danger to the world, if anything, and a real danger to like human beings, and can be used as this dangerous weapon. And when it needs to be, I'll fix that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And it is a weakness in the film, and I think that's where I'm getting to, is that in principle, there's so much about this film to like. A different tone. It's not a bad thing to have a change of director, even though I like Jon Favreau. And whilst his whole Christmas thing gets tired, it gives the film a different look and feel. We have to see him without, his tech and using his detective skills and things like that, which we haven't seen enough of. So there's so much about the film to like, but then so much of it is really sloppy like this. You go, that doesn't make sense. And actually, the logical output of that is this, and we don't want that for the character going forward. And okay, is this really dangerous or is it not?
It does try too hard almost to be different.
Like, I almost thought it would, if there was some sort of like ticking time bomb things, like either like if you get to her in a time, she'll recover and she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Then there's that element to it. I'll be like, okay, well, fine. There's that.
If you can regulate now, we know we can remove this.
Yeah. But
maybe that was always the case. I mean, don't forget the things that you might have explained in earlier drafts of the script get lost, or that was explained in that scene, or I mean, we've never been told you can't remove it. We've just been told that once they fail to regulate, they explode, and obviously there's no coming back from that.
It's just
so in some respects, there isn't a logical disconnect here. It's just the film hasn't explained it properly.
Yeah, but it's just something that you just think, I don't think that's something that's easily reversible. I don't think that's that. It's one of those.
It's right through their body. It does seem to be sort of woven into their DNA.
Yeah.
It's not like Tony's arc reactor. It's not this unit in their chest you can just take out. But the film hasn't really explained it that well.
No.
It's done a lot right. It's not a bad film, but it's not... I don't really like the third act, but yeah, like I say, there are logical outputs of this film that if you took them, if you took certain things in this film to their logical conclusion, we'd be in a very bad place with this as a universe and as things you have to deal with in the next film. Certainly, Iron Man appears in, or Pepper appears in as well. But anyway, the other thing is the skill set when you've got it is again, Mike from Neighbours is as strong as he needs to be. In this, Killian, he's very, they're Superman men at some points and not at others, and it's the same with Pepper, and it all seems a bit Deus Ex Machina. They're beaten, and then suddenly Pepper's back, and she's extremely strong, and
They're capable to take on like an Iron Man suit, but then easily explode when one just turns up and shoots. So just like any other henchman, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Aldrich, or Mike from Neighbours, is, he gets he's I think at times he's a bit too much. Like, from some, I can understand where he comes from vaguely, because he comes from like someone who was kind of beaten and trodden on, and is Tony someone he probably looks up to, and then just completely just shits on him. They can see this sort of kind of like vengeful kind of path he goes down, but he just goes in a proper all out just fucking demon almost. So that's not really explored that well.
There's a few problems with things. That's a definite problem, and I know that. I mean, we're going to get this problem later on with, I'd say, with Doctor Strange. I'd say with Scarlet Witch, where their actual skill set isn't consistently defined. It's almost becomes what the plot needs to be. Vision's a bit like that as well. When Vision first appears, he looks utterly unbeatable. He looks too strong. He looks like beyond Superman strong. And then, when the plot needs him not to be, he isn't. And they just have to be careful with that sort of thing. That's all.
Yeah, it's like powers by convenience.
Yeah. But there you go. So that's it, really. The president is saved. That guy who's wasted a really good actor.
I did like the few gags where he like kind of calls on the last mark, the one that comes to him, and he's like, "Oh, thank God!" It flies and it just trips and breaks right before it gets to him.
That's the one visual joke in it I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that.
And I like the payoff when with Aldrich, where he supposedly first dies. That's no problem. He kind of dies twice. It's like, well, here's a death, and he's like, well, he's not quite dead. So his Pepper Potts kind of sort it out. But there's the bit where you use the suit actually on him to detonate.
Yeah,
but that's pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, he blows up the suits. He's sort of like, right, he does his whole I'm committing to you, Pepper, and then
in voiceover he says that I'll sort your Pepper out. I want to have my chest done.
And I'll just get over stuff and I'll just have the surgery. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
and just think, okay, so you could have done that before then.
Grab some stuff from his old place, whatever's left.
Yeah, he picks up those arm grabber things.
Yeah, sticks it in his product placement. and then
looks steely in the rearview mirror and says, "I am Iron Man."
Yeah,
and not
he
Tony Stark.
He leaves the kid a new rebuilt lab and upgraded gun and all that. And then the post-credit scene is him finishing telling this story to Bruce Banner.
He's
and
fallen asleep.
who's fallen asleep. And when he
I'm not
wakes
that kind
up,
of doctor.
he says, "You fall asleep." And he said, "Where did I get to?" He said, "Elevator in Berlin."
Never heard all of it.
Was Berlin, wasn't it? But yeah.
No, was it
Elevator,
Switzerland?
yeah, in Bern, in Switzerland.
Is it? Okay. Berlin didn't sound right, but yeah, it was in
Berlin's
Europe.
in Germany.
Yeah, I know that.
I know.
Thanks, Becca.
Fun fact.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
Entertaining and educational, folks.
That's it. Final thoughts. Let's reverse the order. I'll go first. I mean, just there isn't a lot to add, really. It's just simply that the idea is good, and the idea of I'm not sure about a third Iron Man film in retrospect. I think it's a safe choice after the Avengers. But having done that, they've gone with a change of director. I think that was enforced upon them, but they made a creative change as opposed to just throwing another action director in there to pretend to be Jon Favreau. I find Shane Black's Christmas obsession pathetic, to be honest, but it works for this film because it gives it a different feel. Because the first two films, obviously being based in California, are very summery, and now we're sort of very wintry and all the rest of it. So the idea of dealing with like the outcome of the previous film on Tony, it's like I said early on, Iron Man 3 is a different film than Iron Man 3 would have been had there just been Iron Man films, because we've had the Avengers. We never see that, heroes having to deal with the outcome, the outcomes of what they did and what happened and how it made them feel. So all of that's really kind of brave. Extremis, that was kind of a creative thing from the comics to try to deal with. But yeah, they've cheapened the outfits a bit. I don't have a problem with the Iron Man, Mandarin, sorry. But they've cheapened the outfits a little bit. They've cheapened the whole connection between Tony and the suit. You can always say that, like, Iron Man is Tony, and I agree with that. And sequences of him out of the suit are welcome. I'm really happy with that. But when the suit doesn't need him to be in it, why would he ever be in it? And I keep on about it, but it's a big problem to me. I really don't like that. And then we got a third act full of suits that look bizarrely different to each other, being cut through like knives through butter. It's like, well, and I just find that all very convenient. This whole thing of heroes and plots being as difficult or as tough as they need to be for the plot. At the center of it all is a president hung in a very sort of Christ-like position. Waste of William Sadler. We don't need it. I don't give a shit about that character. I would care if I cared about the office of the presidency, I guess, but I don't really care. They waste Rebecca Hall in this. I think to some degree they waste Mike from Neighbours as well.
I would agree they are both wasted. They're both really solid actors who don't.
I think they're very
certainly
solid
Rebecca Hall,
actors.
she doesn't appear nearly as much as I'd like in this film, because she's really talented.
Yeah, and even Aldrich Killian, I'm not sure he made the right choices on that character, because you watch him in something like LA Confidential, and he's the opposite of a villain in that he's just so good and so by the books, but in the context of the people around him in that film, he's kind of almost the bad guy, in that there's no warmth to him, they can't bond with him.
He's a bit of a bland villain.
No, I'm talking about in LA Confidential. I'm saying that he was very cold as a character, and I think that actually would translate very, very well to a villain performance. But he kind of hams it up a bit here, and I think as we learn through the Bond series, I'm not the biggest fucking fan of really over hammy performances, but they tried something different. It kind of works, but I'm glad that was it for Iron Man solo efforts.
I mean, I was going to say, do you think they should go for an Iron Man 4?
No, they've got a big universe to play with. Move on.
I did have a little bit of an issue with it. They end it in a place where you think, right, so Tony's not Iron Man anymore. Then they just kind of like he's just kind of giving it all up, really. But
and then he's back fighting with everyone else in his suit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a clean slate. Well, a clean slate. He did call it clean slate protocol. Well, clean slate means you can start again.
Yeah.
So on that regard, I never had a problem. But I did think the "I am Iron Man" at the end of it was just a focus group line. I think you can try to
call back to the first one.
Yeah, I just think you can try to read depth into that isn't there, because in the original script it was "I am Tony Stark," which actually makes more sense. I'm moving on from the Iron Man persona. Doesn't mean you can't still be Iron Man, but it just means that you are more than that, and you are not defined by it. That's a better line. but it's not as audience friendly a line. I Am Tony Stark carries more weight thematically. I Am Iron Man is a crowd pleasing line.
Yeah.
But that's it from me anyway. I don't dislike the film, but I didn't have a great viewing today, I have to say.
In defense of Shane Black and his Christmas obsession, he doesn't ram it down your throat though. To be fair, I mean it's always like something.
How do you know what me and Shane get up to? I am trying desperately to catch Becca while she's having a drink. I've got no idea when that is, so I'm just doing it constantly now.
Yeah, no, it's just always something that's just in the back. It's almost like an Easter egg thing. Almost just like, oh, right, you spot a bit of tinsel in the background. That's but yeah, no, it's I really enjoy it. I acknowledge its problems. I understand some of Dave's criticisms, and I agree to agree that it is a problem, but it's just a problem that doesn't bother me as much. So that's probably like as much as I can really say on it.
I get why people would love this film. I don't think I'd get why people love Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
For example, this film's got enough distinctiveness and colour and stuff to it that you might love it.
I think with Wojcic's Gillian is he has this kind of like he says these lines that like about these like really sort of like early bird catches the worm kind of thing that just sounds really naff, but it's almost if like he's still a little bit of a loser deep down inside, but he's just trying so hard not to be. There is potential of a decent villain there, but I don't think enough is explored. But other than that, I'd like the aspect of Tony going back to his roots, like actually sort of trying to figure stuff without his suit at his disposal. That stuff I like. I do like the little elements. I do like comedic stuff in it, and I think the action is reasonably well done. I think there's just some overhanging plot elements that just as Dave said, like just is detrimental to the character, but as a whole, it's a really entertaining thing to watch. So, Becca.
I can't really add much more. Really, has pros and cons. I can't add much more, unfortunately, to what I said to begin with. So, yeah.
Yeah, you always just repeat yourself. I feel the same way, don't I?
It remains to be seen where I'll rank it. But yeah, I had a good time with it. And we'll probably in terms of the ranking of the Iron Man films, I would probably rank this one in the middle, perhaps. But yeah, as I say, it's been an education, definitely, just because out of all of the certainly the Marvel characters, what I mean, the Avengers, it's probably the ones I'm least familiar with. So yeah, it's been an education, and it's been very interesting. But I think it's on balance, it's they've tried to do something different, but at the same time, where those differences have been called out, it has been a little bit to its detriment, shall we say. And I know at the time a lot of fans took offence to how the character of the Mandarin was treated, but at the same time, they're going to make changes to this holy text, and it's going to happen. It's going to try to strike out as well. And it was the 50th anniversary of the character, so they tried to make some changes and make it different and soup it up a little bit. So that's not something that fans are always going to like, but there it is. And we've ended up in probably one of the strongest films of the series. So.
There was also talk with the Mandarin about how they're going to get the issue because he's deemed a bit of a racist character. Now I don't know the Mandarin. I don't know whether that's actually true to an extent, but but we have that opinion floating around. So it does make sense to do something like this where he's still in it, but different. It's like it's a way of getting around it, isn't it? So it's not real pleasing people really sometimes in regards to that. But hey ho.
To be fair, I've not engaged with big Iron Man fans enough to. I'm not just talking about the people who just.
They might all really love it. It might just be.
Well, no, I just mean for example, I met with someone about 2 weeks ago who really hates The Last Jedi, and I was expecting to hear the same old hackneyed fucking arguments that we tried to debunk in our review, and a lot of the things he said were quite reasonable. a few weren't. A few of them did echo, but he didn't come out with the betrayal of the Luke character. The Rose is a fucking terrible character, social justice warrior shit. He didn't say any of that. He was actually saying, well, that bit it doesn't make any sense, and this bit didn't make any sense. And he was actually pointing out things I hadn't thought of. And all I'm saying is that if I talk to a reasonable person about this, they might say, well, the problem with the way they've done the Mandarin here is this. And you have to remember that Iron Man fans view the Mandarin as this type of character, or they might say, well, I understand what you're saying about out of the suits, but this. I'm saying that there are counter arguments there. I'm just saying, though, that once again, it's a film that a lot of people didn't like. I don't particularly love. But again, like The Last Jedi, I've got huge problems, but it ain't the problems everyone else has.
Yeah,
It isn't the Mandarin. It isn't any of that. I don't have a problem with that. That was quite a nice little touch.
I think, with regards to those sort of things in general, I think social media has a lot to answer for. I think it's kind of brought a lot of these kind of things in people.
It's debased the debate as well, because the problem is...
I think what it is, you got a group mentality, got one side against the other side, and rather than actually talking to people and their general opinions, you got people who you end up arguing over over things which is it's all stuff that probably isn't even in the film. It's more about stuff around the film and opinions that are surrounding the film rather than...
Well, I mean, the classic thread at the moment, because I follow Marvel threads, but somebody will say they particularly like, let's say it's Iron Man 3, and one of the first reply underneath will say, are you kidding? Iron Man 3 was dog shit.
Yeah.
And you think, well, there's a fucking cogent argument I can really wrestle with. That's the problem. Firstly, it's just insults. But secondly, there's no debate. There's just a statement.
Well, it's
all right. Well, tell me why. And the reply, if it does become a thread, the reply might be, I really liked it, and the reply will be what they did to the Mandarin dude. And you go, again, it's still not a fucking debate.
Yeah,
it's a statement.
I mean, even if let's just say you say that, and then someone says, "Oh, I really love that film." Well, what's that saying anything? I mean, what's the even point of having that out there? I mean, I'll look at.
It's a bit redundant, isn't it?
Two people.
I mean, Twitter in general. I mean,
they have a different view on things.
You see people, they tweet banal things as if that means anything, and you think well, why would anyone care? Why would anyone care about
it's worse in Facebook threads because everyone queues up to add flavours of the same thing right underneath. And it's utterly pointless. Yeah. I don't like this film, fine. I don't particularly like this film. Well, it's not good. Well, that's not fair. I've been relatively positive about it, but it's not going to rank very high. It really isn't. But let's either debate it or leave people to enjoy it, one or the other.
And social media is not a good place to debate.
No,
it really
exactly. And it's but the thing is, all I'm doing is giving your opinion. You don't need to come back with, seriously, dude? Well, yeah, seriously, it's just a fucking opinion. Live with it. But there you go. I'd feel less angry about all this if I knew more about this film, Chris.
Yeah, if only there was facts mixed with fun.
How would such a mechanism be delivered to us?
I don't know, Becca?
Through the medium of fun facts. Oh my god.
I'm literally holding my breath from excitement.
Okay, you can breathe out. You can breathe out now, it's fine. Alright.
Yeah,
I've got some... I struggled for fun facts about this film. One of them is not particularly fun, but the rest of them are quite interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, fun fact number one, a different version of this film exists and was shown for the Chinese market. It would have involved more involvement for the character of Dr. Wu. He did more, saved Iron Man and brought him back from the brink. So that's quite interesting.
I just wonder on things like that whether that really had a fucking impact on the Chinese box office. I get it. China's completely different. Element, but
it's
a big
world's
draw.
Second biggest market or something, isn't it?
Yeah, a big market. But
a lot of films now have to not. Well, I want to say pander to them, but they have to.
Well, but I don't. I mean, do they? I mean,
not really.
I do worry like whether
No, but they have to have some draw, some appeal.
No, I don't agree. I mean, if they're funded from there, then yes, certainly.
Oh yeah,
I remember talking about Transformers 4, where that film is literally almost an hour too long because they throw in a whole section there because of where the money's come from.
The Chinese bots.
The Meg has some.
That was very interesting. That has big Chinese backing, and that's really interesting in terms of the Chinese-Japanese relations.
I'm sorry, the biggest films that have ever opened over there take a total of about 100 million.
I recently saw I'll try and find it and send you guys a link. There's a really good article on the BBC website of all places about how the box office figures are kind of how Chinese cinemas could be. I think the phrase they used were empty but full, for example, about how investment plays a big part in it as well, and that a big box office may not guarantee not box office, a big investment may not always guarantee bums on seats and vice versa.
The point I'm making is if a film opens big in China, it does something along the lines of a very big release in this country.
Exactly.
Bear in mind, their economy's big by nature of the number of people they have.
Sure.
Their per capita wealth is miles below us, which means they'll cost a cinema ticket will either cost a fraction of what they cost here, or they would cost the same, but less people would be able to go. The China is not yet this fucking mammoth market. It's growing, but it ain't like the US market. It just isn't.
No, I meant obviously in terms of funding, you have to depend to it, but it'll come out of it'll come out of nowhere.
This is being funded by Disney. We're being funded. This is being funded by Disney, so it's not a problem here.
No.
Yeah. I just wonder whether it's actually a thing where it's Hollywood just overthinking it and thinking,
I think it is, to be honest.
Should we, I think, well, why? I just struggle to think that relatively the Chinese public, whether we go and see Iron Man 3 or not, are gonna care that there's a little tiny thing that with an actor that they know is gonna really make a thing at the box office. I think they're gonna see Transformers. They're gonna see Transformers. They're accustomed to these kind of things regardless.
It's the US fundamentally misunderstanding.
They are overthinking it a lot.
We're about to see a lot of this with Me Too and stuff, that if it makes people rethink or at least think about the tone in films, then that's a good thing. If it makes writers ham-fistedly throw in a scene half-assedly, then it's going to be
fuck's sake.
It's going to be don't be fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I do think it is an element of, that audience is getting bigger. Let's, yeah, no.
Anyway, sorry, Becca. Fun facts?
That's fun, folks. So you can learn about the Chinese market.
That's fun, folks!
Fun fact number 2, this is the first Iron Man film to gross more than $1 billion. And obviously the second Marvel film to do so, the Avengers being the first film to do it. So it's a $1 billion Marvel movie.
1.2 billion this did, 1.2.
Well, yeah, it was a bit more than that, I think, obviously, but...
That was a surprise at the time, because the second one did 620 or something like that.
Yeah, but we had 2012, 2013, we had 1 billion Bond and 1 billion Marvel, so not too shabby. Fact number 3, not very fun. I don't know why I put it at number 3. This is one of the last big screen appearances of Joan Rivers, very sadly. I passed on the following year in 2014.
Yeah.
She's a bit of a favourite of mine. She was very funny. Anyway, fun fact number 4. Jessica Brown Finley appears in this film due to footage being shown in the background. Jessica Brown Finley from Downton Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
And I read that she was considered for a role in Captain America Winter Soldier. But obviously she didn't make it, but I thought that was quite interesting.
She would have been a rubbish Winter Soldier.
Yeah, she wouldn't have.
She might have been a good bookie, though.
With a fake arm. That's quite funny. And final fun fact number 5, Iron Man 3 is a number of 5s. No, it's not. It's a number of firsts of the series. First Iron Man film to be shot in digital, and first Iron Man film where Stan Lee has a cameo, and he's not mistaken for somebody else. He's like a beauty talent show judge. It's quite funny.
He's just a pervy old man.
He's just a pervy old man, but
more water.
We love him. He's Stan Lee. He's all right. Oh dear.
Sorry.
I'll choke again in a minute. Oh dear. In the first Iron Man film, where we don't see Nick Fury turn up, we don't see Samuel L. Jackson turned up as Nick Fury to say, "Now I've got a job for you." So yeah, the three firsts in this
Busy Robin
third film
McDowell's.
in the Iron Man series.
Yeah.
And that's my 5 fun facts. One of them not being so fun, but hey ho.
And there's your lot. There's your fun, folks. So, social media.
You can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find me at Cinema Charts on Twitter, even though I've just slacked off social media because I've rarely ever use it now. But yeah, you can find me on there. Oh yeah, you can also go on the website where you can find all the old episodes.
Cinematronics.co.uk.
That's the one. Though if you just Google Cinema Charts, you'll find it.
Cinematronics with an X.
Yes.
Yes. Otherwise, you'll
At
come
the,
across
at the
another
end, to be clear.
Yeah. It'll be weird if it started with an X.
Cinematronics.
with a slight accent, I grant you. And you can find us on Twitter at expectustotalk and facebook.com/expectustotalk. We're also on the YouTube. If you type in "Do you expect us to talk" on the YouTube channel, and we're also on Stitcher as well. If you search for the same, you can also drop us an email expectustotalk@gmail.com. And also, as Chris said earlier, you can listen to us on iTunes. If you type in "Do you expect us to talk," you can find us on there. And please leave us a glowing 5-star review, as that helps us to attract more listeners, be lovely or not, and rank higher in the searches. Thank you.
And the Downton Abbey movie has been greenlit.
Yeah! I can't wait. I'm quite
What,
excited.
seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a film.
It's going to be all the same, but we're like car chases and shagging.
Oh, for God's sake.
Even more car chases.
Well, that's one
Maybe-
movie I probably won't be seeing.
Maybe Dan Stevens might return as a ghost. Woo!
Yeah, you will.
And that's not going to happen.
I'd see it if it
Anyway.
did.
I would pay to see that film if he did. But yeah, I don't think he probably won't be in it. So, but it'd be quite interesting, considering it was, it's the biggest series to come out of Britain for a long, long time. It was one of ITV's greatest exports at the time as well. So, I think it's not to be sniffed at, to be honest.
Isn't it basically upstairs, downstairs?
It was basically a rehash of Upstairs Downstairs. But it was very popular, so
Yeah, well, yeah.
can't argue with it.
People like what they like, you know.
That's it.
I'm not
That's
one to
it.
judge.
No, this is it.
So,
And that's
yeah.
probably why it was so popular, because it resonated with people who enjoyed Upstairs Downstairs in the previous, that generation.
I love Downstairs.
It's getting upstairs that's the problem. It's too much effort.
Yeah, that's getting a bit hard now, so.
What would they have called it if it had been a bungalow?
Don't know. I can think of a rude name for it.
Can you?
I won't say it. I don't know, front
Alright.
of the house, rear of the house, I don't know.
In the back doors.
In the back of the house.
Indoors,
In the front
outdoors.
door, out the back door. My friend's parents live in a bungalow, but they've got this vast back garden that goes on forever and ever and ever. It would take them quite a long time to go from one end to the other, because the property is so large.
That's the kind of anecdote we like to tell on Do You Expect Us to Talk?
That's a fun fact. My friend who you don't know
Yeah.
has this interesting physical quirk.
Yeah, that's it for tonight then. So where do we go next, Becca?
Do you expect us to talk will return with Thor, The Dark World?